Earlier today, I sat down with House Speaker Mike Johnson. Here's what he had to say about tonight's State of the Union address. Mr. Speaker, nice to speak to you.
Great to be back with you. Thanks for being here. Welcome to the Capitol again.
Thank you. Do you remember last year's State of the Union vaguely?
Vaguely. Very different experience for me, I think, from what tonight will be. I'll have to sit behind the president the whole time, so I'll get a different vantage point this year.
So in your wildest dreams, a year ago, would you ever have thought where you'd be sitting tonight?
Of course not. We didn't see this coming. It wasn't on my bucket list. I mean, I had been content to be a lieutenant. I was on the leadership team for the House Republicans for a few years, but never in my wildest imagination would I have been elected speaker. So, no, this is very new and very unexpected.
How do you prepare yourself for tonight?
Thoughtfully. Look, I mean, this is an important time. We're in serious times as a country. The president is going to stand there tonight, and I think the theme of his speech, we're told, is going to be a reset. Good luck with that. The American people aren't buying it. I think I was asked this weekend, in your view, if you had to just say one word, how would you describe the State of the Union? And I said, sadly, I would use the word decline, because under the Biden administration, that's what we have, a decline in every metric, from our sovereignty with the open border, to our safety in the streets of every city, to our economy, to our standing on the world stage. And it puts us in a very dangerous place. And I think everybody in America feels that and knows it. And so it doesn't really matter what words are on the page or what he says tonight. It doesn't change how people feel.
How do you prepare your Republicans, how to conduct themselves tonight?
I had a talk with my team. I think decorum is important. There are going to be a lot of things that the president says tonight that we're going to vehemently disagree with, of course. But how we disagree, I think, is important. I mean, it's an example. We're the elected leaders of the people. We should act as such, I think. And so I'm trying to deter everyone from the boos and the catcalls and all that. We're not the British Parliament. We're the United States Congress. And we can just express our disapproval, but I think we ought to do it, in a civil manner, so much as that's possible.
I imagine your job would be very easy if you had a 30-seat majority.
Yes, it would.
But you don't.
We don't. Historically, I think we have the second smallest majority in the history of the United States Congress, a 2-vote margin. So I'm a lifelong conservative, Greta, you know my background, and my objective every day is to move the ball forward as far as we can on the proverbial field for our core conservative principles. It's difficult when you have only 2-vote razor-thin majority. And so we're sort of hemmed in by reality. We can't make transformational change when we only have control of one chamber of Congress, effectively 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government. Because remember, the other team has the White House and the Senate. So it affects the strategy and how you move the ball forward. But I'm absolutely convinced that we're going to have an extraordinary election cycle. And I'm convinced we're going to grow the House majority this fall. I believe we're going to win the Senate back for the Republican Party. And I believe Donald Trump is going to be returned to the White House. So I tell my guys, we're going to be in a much better mood next January than we are right now.
I imagine that there's a big difference between what you'd like to see happen in Congress and what's realistic.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, because the reality is the numbers, right? It's a numbers game. You've got to have 218 votes to move legislation that you want to pass. And as has been our experience in this Congress, because we only have the majority in the House, much of what we pass, in fact, almost all of what we pass, sits and collects dust on Chuck Schumer's desk in the Senate. So it's a frustrating experience sometimes. It's frustrating to the American people because they want us to solve more of the problems, and we have the ideas to do it, but we currently don't always have the votes to do it. And that's our concern, that's our frustration, and that's why, ironically, we're very hopeful, because I believe the American people see that. I think they're going to vote for solutions, and I think we're going to have a good November, and we'll be in a very different position next year than we are right now.
What makes you think that you're going to get a much bigger margin, or even going to keep the House next November?
Well, I've been all over the country. I mean, one of the jobs of the Speaker of the House is when we're not in session here, I'm pretty much always on the road. And so I think I've been to over 20 states in the last several weeks, doing events for all of my colleagues and our candidates that are challenging these seats that we're going to flip from Democrat to Republican. But everywhere I am, Greta, no matter whether it's out west, Midwest, Long Island, Deep South, it's the same exact energy in the base. I mean, people are energized and they're motivated. We're setting fundraising records on our side because even small dollar donations. I mean, the average online gift right now for our cause is about $12. But if somebody puts $10 in the game for the first time, they're motivated and they're going to get their family to vote and their friends and the people they go to church with. And that's going to make a big difference on Election Day. I think people need a change, and we're going to provide that.
If President Trump is reelected, you still, he's obviously going to be the nominee, most likely. You've still got to pick up the independents and also the voters for Governor Nikki Haley.
Yes, yes.
And the Governor Nikki Haley were probably votes not so much necessarily for her, but in some instances against former President Trump.
There's probably some of that. It's not unusual in a difficult primary season for there to need to be a unification of the party after that. I think President Trump's done a good job of that thus far. His speech the other night on Super Tuesday was, I thought, the right tone. He's talking about unifying and bringing people in, and I think they will. You look at the contrast on Election Day between President Trump and President Biden. I mean, it is a stark contrast, night and day. Everybody knows what President Trump can deliver because we did that. And, after the first 2 years of his administration, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, not just the U.S., ever. In every demographic, everybody was doing better. The world was safer. We were projecting, strength on the world stage, and so we were maintaining peace because of it. I mean, in terms of public policy, in terms of our standing around the globe, it was just a much different reality than we have right now. Right now, people are hurting. Families are hurting. The inflation rate is like 17.9%. The average American household right now is having to spend $11,400 more annually just to make ends meet. And, I think the debt in U.S. households is at an all-time high. I mean, we're not on a sustainable trajectory. And, of course, the border's wide open. We all know all the societal ills that are coming from that. Everything President Biden has touched has been a disaster. He has nothing to brag about. And so I think people are going to evaluate that at the end of the day. And I think people will come home and they'll vote Republican.
President Biden hasn't given a lot of interviews, so we haven't seen a lot of him. Tonight we'll get a chance to watch him address the nation. But have you been with him, just you, or have you talked to him? I mean, have any sort of sense, because we don't get to see him on a one-on-one basis.
I don't get to see him one-on-one very often. In fact, for about 6 straight weeks, I requested a meeting with the Speaker of the House to meet with the President. I thought it was very important to talk about what he can and should do on the border, as well as some highly classified national security matters. They wouldn't allow me to schedule that. They wouldn't allow me to meet with him, which is a little disconcerting. In the small handful of times that I have been with him, it's rarely one-on-one. We've only had 2 of those, and they were very brief. It's usually with a larger group, and he just doesn't inspire confidence, right? I'm trying to be charitable about this, but I think everybody recognizes that Joe Biden as an individual is not on his A game. He doesn't have the same level of, let's say, acumen that he did when he was the chair of the Judiciary Committee in the U.S. Senate. And it's not a slight against him personally. I mean, everybody ages differently, but he's missing a step, and we know that, we see it, and so do our adversaries. And that's why Russia and China and Iran and everybody else, North Korea around the country, are acting so provocatively, because we are not, Reagan reminded us we maintain peace through strength. We're not projecting strength right now. And so that invites aggression. And that's what we're seeing.
Well, it's a very important night tonight because the world gets to see how we interact. We have this constitutional process of having the president address. Mm-hmm. So it's an exciting night, and It's a big election season.
It is, and there's a lot of pageantry that goes into tonight. And, the president comes at the invitation of the Speaker of the House. So I sent the formal letter, and they formally responded, and now we have all of this. It's an important part of American politics and our tradition, and these are the things that make us extraordinary and different, have made us the greatest nation in the history of the world. And I remind my colleagues that even if the President of the United States is standing there saying things we greatly disagree with, and we do, we still respect the office. We have to. It's part of our system. And I think it's important for the American people to see that. We talked a lot about decorum in the room tonight, and I think that all those things are important parts of our tradition, and we don't want to lose those. And I think the Congress sets an example for the whole country. So we'll see how it goes tonight.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, and we'll all be watching. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.